Activity 9. Okay, ladies. If you can start by just saying your name and telling me who you are, your relationship to one another.
My name is Debbie Brown, and this is my daughter, Tori Brown.
Hi. Hi, Tori. What is your relationship to one another?
I'm the mother, and she's the daughter.
Mother-daughter, okay. How would you describe your relationship between the two? Open, closed, friends, direct, authoritarian.
Complex.
Complex. Okay.
I think we have a good relationship, but I think that sometimes she would like to be more friends than parent-child, and that's hard, especially when you become a teenager.
More open and accepting.
That's good. That's definitely one of the things that's valued in relationships. So. Okay. And could you say that you guys take a lot of trips together?
No.
We don't take very many trips together, just she and I. It's usually more the whole family.
Family thing? Okay, sounds good. Maybe you guys would like to take more trips together?
That would be fun.
Well, what was your last family trip? Tell me a little bit about it. Or your last trip, just the two of you.
Just the two of us.
Right.
The last one that I can remember that was really like a trip, like overnight, was I was in 5th grade. We were going to Barrier Island.
Okay.
So that was it was 3 years ago, and it was a trip to South Carolina coast, and it was a school trip that really focused on science and things like that. So a lot of the activities were science-related, related to the sea and the different environment and habitat down there.
Okay. What activities did you guys do?
Well, there were like stations on each day, and one day we went like to a marsh and take pictures of the life, like the habitats and all that, and then we had to document all this stuff and then make a book afterwards.
Right. For
a grade. We went to this mud pit just for fun, just to see how hard, like, that was probably the favorite activity out of everyone, was the mud pit there.
Okay. I bet that was pretty fun. How long did you guys stay there?
It was 3 days.
3 days? Okay. Well, when's the next one you guys have planned?
Well, Tori is really interested in going on a cruise. So we were thinking maybe next summer that would be a nice thing.
Okay. To Jamaica? To Bahamas?
We were thinking an Alaskan cruise.
Alaska. It's cold there. Okay. Well,
but it would be in the summertime, so I don't think it would be too cold. But
doesn't it make stops everywhere?
It does have, but they're all in cold regions.
That one in Mexico.
I'm not really sure.
Prepared for a cold trip?
I can.
How does that make you feel?
Well, I like the cold versus hot. So, I think it'd be a nice, fun thing to get out of the hot summer and get to a cooler area.
Right. Okay.
I think a cruise would be fun also because it has lots of activities like built in. So, you could do things on the ship, but you also could go on, sightseeing and...
Yeah. I've never been on a cruise myself, but I think they say there are, like, parties on the boat that you can go to.
Yeah, I'm not so much into the partying, but, everything's just, everything that you could possibly need would be
on the boat. Definitely interesting. Okay. How did the trip make you, how do you think the trip would make you feel, I guess, as far as a relationship between the two? Do you think it would strengthen it? Do you think what do you think it would do as far as a relationship?
Well, I think that it would be fun to go on a trip that would help strengthen our relationship, especially now that you're becoming a teenager. She wants to spend more time with me, it seems, than kind of in the past. She just wanted to be with her friends, and now she seems to want to spend a little bit more, have more quality time, just she and I doing things. So I think that a trip that was just the two of us would be nice because we would have that time together.
Right.
What do you think?
Well, I definitely think the reason our relationship is not as open as it could be now is because of our different views on just the situations that happen in our household. And we don't always agree with it, so then we kind of just stop there. But I think if we could just not include, that's one just have us two, I think it'd be a lot better.
It'd be a lot better. So the friendship type of relationship that you have would definitely be strengthened by more activities between just the two of you.
Yeah.
Trips to Alaska, parties on a boat. Okay, no parties. Okay, so I know you mentioned going to the islands, Barrier Reef Islands, and that was about 3
years ago.
3 years ago. Are there any in the past before that you remember going on the trips? Or maybe individually that you remember?
Well, recently I went on a church youth camp retreat to Montreat in the Black Mountains of Asheville. Mm-hmm. And it was a really good experience for me. It changed my view. It strengthened my relationship with God. It made me, it's a community where there are thousands of people who come from all over to come to this conference, and everyone is just so accepting, and there's no judgment, and it's just nice to see how many people want to have the same relationship with God that you do.
That sounds really interesting, and that was taken by yourself, without your mother?
Yeah.
Okay. So what specifically activities did you guys do there?
We'd have morning worship, which was keynote, and we'd have a speaker there who would preach about experiences and then how to incorporate modern day things and to how that could be the Word of God also. Mm-hmm. And then after that we'd have a small group of people that we had never met in our life every day, twice a day, and we'd meet after keynote and talk about what we thought keynote was about and how we could incorporate that in our daily lives.
Right, okay. So the trip by yourself you said it was eye-opening.
Yeah.
Just to kind of summarize it, and it kind of changed you, coming into adulthood, if you will. And it sounds like you really enjoyed that trip. Am I hearing that right? Okay, that's good. And you missed out, Mom, on this trip.
Miss out, yeah.
But was there any recent trip that you've taken by yourself? As a mom, I know that's got to be hard to do with children.
I went on a trip in November. It was a work conference, but I was gone for several days. But it was nice because I got to see people that I hadn't seen since graduate school, people that I used to work with that maybe have moved on because it was our national convention. So that was really kind of neat.
Okay, that's good. Do you think that, we're going to do vice versa and switch both around, but do you think that Tori would have been able to pick up anything from the trip that you went on? I know it was a work trip, but I mean, as far as morals, values, things that kids might want to know, or how do you think that may have impacted her life?
I think that, different workshops that I went to at the conference, talked about, strategies that would be useful for middle and high schoolers, for learning. It talked about, ways that, we can incorporate our youth to be mentors for younger students and be good role models. So, I think that some of those workshops would have been, pretty enlightening for her, because I do think that she does a good job with trying to mentor, students, even if they're in middle school that are younger than her. I think that it would have been good. It would have maybe taught her some strategies that she doesn't know, or just maybe have given her some ideas of, different things that she could have done.
Okay. And the retreat, how do you think that may have impacted your mother if she were there?
I think it inspires everybody their first time. they go, and you want to go back because it's an experience like no other.
Right.
And it definitely would have strengthened her relationship with everybody there. You would have been more open. There's no judgment, or you can't be. It's not as mean as the world that we live in.
Yeah, definitely. We do live in a mean world these days.
I remember when I wasn't a teenager yet. I was probably 8 or 9, but I went on a church retreat with my mother in Maine, and it was kind of a neat experience because we were there for a week, and there were lots of people from all over the United States that went, and you went to like different little groups, and so Tori going on this trip sort of reminded me, it kind of was nostalgic thinking back to the trip that we went to in Maine when I was younger. So I don't know exactly what her trip was like, but I kept thinking, oh, probably she's going, she's doing this now or doing that now. Or
right.
They stayed in a house that was a little bit more modern. We stayed in like cabins that had bunk beds, but
right.
they
sounds a little different.
They were in a house that, so they could cook their own meals. Like we went to a mess hall for like all the meals and things like that. So they also did things that were more kind of family, oriented.
The groups that we were staying with in homes separately, we called them our back home groups. So those are the people that you got to come like back to the place where you were staying, and a lot of the groups stayed in the Assembly Inn, which is more like a hotel kind of, so it's kind of like the cabins and everyone meets in the eating hall and everything like that. But we got to find a house that had enough bedrooms for everyone who was there, and we stayed, and it was nice because we all broke into the groups that we wanted to be in our back home groups, and then we got to meet people who we weren't as close to and get closer to them.
Right.
And it was nice, and the walk down there to where we'd always meet, the auditorium, was a pretty good walk, so you'd have stuff to talk about there and back, because it was about a 35 to 40 minute walk from our house to the town.
Okay. That sounds fun. Both of your experiences, it sounds like you could have benefited from being together. I mean, of course, it may or may not have been an option to be together, but sounds like your relationship would have been made closer, again, to maybe by those actions. I know recently that we discussed before that your mother passed, your grandmother passed, and there was a few trips that you guys went on with her. She was very active, that you could maybe tell us a little bit about, maybe one of those trips?
Well, Mom was one of those people that always wanted to kind of be on the go, and she really loved nature, so we went to Charleston, and they have some plantations down there. Tori was young. She was, 3 or 4. But we went to Magnolia Plantation, and we went to Fort Sumter, and we went to the market. So, like, most of the trips that we went on with Mom, whether they were, someplace or when we went to visit her at home, kind of revolved around the outdoors. She loved looking at flowers and, bird watching and being able to pick out different animal tracks and things like that, which is one thing that I'm not so much into. So I'm very thankful that, Tori was able to experience that from Mom, and maybe she will have a love for that.
Yeah. Do you recall anything from those trips?
There's a trip that I remember that I keep going back to, and me and her and my grandmother were climbing a mountain called Mount Monadnock in New Hampshire, and I remember we were hiking, and we hiked the small trail, and we got to this lookout point, and it was so amazing, and there were all these rocks we got to sit on, and then we just kind of sat there and watched, and it was really, it was a beautiful view, and
I bet it was.
You could see the whole town from, down below, and, try to pick out, oh, that's Grandma's house, and that's the pond, and
right.
That's the village, and, yeah, that was, and that was one of the things in my family, by the time you're between the ages of 3 and 5, but by the time you're 5, they would like you to have climbed the mountain. And so that was something that I think that Mom really cherished, because she, climbed. She did all the walking herself. Tori did all the walking herself. And so I think that was something that, and then Mom, we got pictures up there. So I think that was something that really meant a lot to Mom, because she still had those displayed in her house, even though Tori was becoming a teenager, she still had the pictures of, Tori up on top of the mountain, right. Mom and Tori together on top of the mountain, because that was something that, when she was still able to walk well and get around by herself, she would go up 2 to 3 times a week. And after she passed, we went up there last summer actually, and went up, climbed the mountain with a lot of our family, and then we spread some of her ashes up there.
Right, yeah, because it sounds like she loves the outdoors.
Yeah, she did.
Definitely appropriate. You being an only child, as we talked about before, and you and your daughter developing somewhat of the same relationship, could you say that is one of the reasons that you and her have somewhat of a friendly relationship, because of maybe the relationship you and your mom had?
I think
is it similar?
And also, Tori was almost 7 when her brother was born, so, for a good bit of her life, she was an only child for a while, and I didn't know if, we would ever have another child, or, so that is that's part of the tension that we have sometimes in the family, is that because I grew up as an only child, I always wanted siblings, and so her little brother is a nuisance lots of times, and my take on it is, be thankful that you have a brother, and just, I didn't have any siblings, so just be happy that you have them, and, and I know that things are different when you do have siblings, but, it's harder for me to see her point, because I always wanted siblings, so I feel like, whether they're bugging you or not, you should be happy, and then sometimes he kind of gets his way, and I think that is part of the tension, is that, there's not always the consistency between the two parents with him, and then I think that sometimes she feels that things are not fair, that, that she kind of gets slighted sometimes, just to make it easier, and, and I do feel that that's not always fair. Except in the moment, sometimes it's just easier.
It's easier, right. Well, how could you say are you more grateful for having a brother now, hearing your mother's side of things, being an only child?
I mean, I am always grateful for all the family that I have. I love them all. It's when he is at the age where he should be able to comprehend what someone says and not deliberately try to get under their skin, which is what I think he does with me, and then he knows he can get away with it.
Okay. The baby's getting his way.
It's not more like that. It's more, I'm older and should know not to let it get to me, but he just has that thing that always bugs me.
What thing?
It's just the way he can switch on and off emotions and make it seem so real, and then go and apologize and mean it, but go do it 5 minutes later just makes it so much harder to want to accept his apology.
Okay. Sounds like there's a little frustration with the younger sibling, a little tension there, which is understandable. It's fine. The relationship between you and your mom is definitely something that I believe would help that situation. The trips that we talked about earlier, you guys taking together, and the possible trips in the future to strengthen that open, friendly relationship between you guys would definitely enhance the understanding between you guys, so that when you're describing things like this with your brother, that she's more open and willing to understand and friendly, if you will. But you guys have been wonderful today. Our time is winding down, I believe.
Okay.
So I just wanted to tell you thank you for being here with me today. And
Thank you for interviewing us.
no problem. All right.